Good evening and welcome to a special episode of Anan podcast, shot here live at البجيري Terrace during the Misk Global Forum 2023. I'm very delighted to be sharing the stage with my good friend here, Muatasam Aulaqi, visiting us from Oman, the co-founder of Numu. Welcome, Muatasam.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Tayyim, for hosting me, and it's my honor to be here.
So, Muatasam, you have co-founded a platform called Numuhub, right?
Correct.
A company called Numuhub.
Correct.
Mainly within the social entrepreneurship space.
Absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you initially came up with the idea of Numuhub?
Fantastic. First of all, thank you guys for hosting me here. As you highlighted, Numu is a social enterprise that aims to provide meaningful experiences. When I say meaningful experiences, as in travel experiences. I'll come back to your question, whether how did I start that, but I'll just explain what Numu is. So basically, it is a sustainable travel packages. People want to travel abroad and want to travel sustainably. They come register with us and then they go abroad through the various sustainable travel packages. I came up with the idea is I've always loved traveling. Traveling was part of my identity. Traveling, I viewed it as a way of me opening my mind to different cultures, different experiences. It fosters my growth as a person before anything else. And this is how I really viewed traveling. And one day, I have decided to go for a very long backpacking trip, solo backpacking trip for 6 months. And I just finished literally my education, and it was done in the UK at that time. At the moment I submitted my dissertation thesis, I was like, I'm out, and I'm on 6 months solo backpacking trips across different continents. I started with Europe, and then Africa, and then India, and across all these 6 months, I have decided to volunteer in different destinations. I was in Greece volunteering for 2 weeks, helping with refugee camps, and all these experiences really built so much in me. I don't want to take too much answering that question, but this is how I started the company. I was really inspired by traveling, but I viewed it as a way of we have to travel sustainably. And this is what Numuhub came up. If you think about the name Numuhub, Numu means growth, and hub is the community. Right. And having these two combined, it provides the right platform for especially the youth, and for such a podcast with the right target audience as well. People between 20 and 35 years, those people, they don't want to travel for just normal travels or conventional travel.
People, so what is sustainable travel?
Fantastic. Sustainable travel, very good question. And the key actually out of this question is sustainable travel is by giving back to the communities you travel to. And instead of just going and traveling for luxury or for fun or for shopping or whatever. Right. So instead of you going to London and enjoying London and just as a more shopping, people want to go to Africa and they want to do and help communities at the same time enjoy the destinations they travel to. One of our trips is going to Zanzibar, where we spend 2 hours in the morning or 4 hours in the morning actually contributing to building a school. Mm-hmm. And the rest of the day we're doing all the tourism activities. So the sustainable travel is being a conscious customer in the way that you travel, by giving back to the communities you travel to. And
do you find that the communities are open to receiving this kind of support from people who are coming for tourism to their countries?
Absolutely. If you look at the statistics, for example, so many underprivileged communities and underprivileged countries have tourism as their main pillar for economic growth. Tourism have provided the likelihood, that provided their earnings on a daily basis. I was talking about Zanzibar, 80% of the revenues in Zanzibar comes from tourism. And this have created so many jobs, this have created a better economy, this have created people able to go and eat and buy, this have created economy for people who have something they work on. So definitely, as an industry, have created so much. And now in terms of the communities you travel to, just for example, so to link it to what a sustainable tourism is, let's say that most of the 5-star resort actually happens in islands, yeah? And for example, Maldives, Zanzibar's, at the coast side, you will find all these very, very expensive 5-star resorts. But at the back side, literally at the hotel or the main in the island, you'll find extreme poverty. And usually the tourists will come and then they just will benefit the main companies or the main resorts. But there is little has been given to the main people or the
That's incredible.
Yeah. So what Numu stands is we try to bridge that gap. When we go to travel, we partner with companies that are locally companies. We don't go for like big companies to support the locals.
So in terms of where you're setting up your guests, hotels, accommodations, and so on, you look at local companies?
Absolutely. So we always try to support the locals in everything. In our staffing, for example, we always hire from the locals who in our supply chain, because when you have supply chains, you have the food, you have the accommodations, you have the hotels, and all the logistics. We try to have a local sense of it, or local responsibility, if I would say, towards making sure that actually we hire and that money goes to the right people. At the same time, we contribute. For example, part of our daily itinerary, we spend 2 hours and we go to school, underprivileged school, and we try to build schools for them, for example. Right. 10% to 15% of our revenues in Numuhub goes into donation. And we have managed to give access to more than 10,000 underprivileged kids. They didn't have access to school before. Now they have access to school.
That's incredible.
And this is just comes to the idea is you're actually buying a product or traveling, while at the same time you're actually helping someone else.
You're contributing.
Absolutely. And this is where, like, I'll just give you an example of Tom's shoes, for example. Tom's shoes, when
buy
they started,
one,
exactly,
give one to,
buy one and they give two. They give one to someone else. And now the company is on $700 million valuation. And they started with the giving concept. They started with sustainability.
Right.
And this is what we really need at this generation. People, they want to contribute with their products. They just don't want to be selfish customers.
I think a lot of, so that's one part, but I think a lot of the fears that from getting into that prevent youth from getting into social enterprises or social entrepreneurship and so on is the balance between you giving back and actually getting something in return. So, for instance, when you look at your organization, would you say that the model that you have set up is sustainable and as a social as a social enterprise?
First of all, I would like to really thank you for such a very, very, very important and beautiful question. And this is really the key side of it. And giving has always been viewed as a burden. You know, it's something that, oh, I'm giving it, but it's really a burden on me. Whereas actually, it's an enabler for your growth. Giving is the enabler for your growth success. As I said, Tom's shoes would not have reached $700 million valuation if it was not for the conscious customers, if not for the giving.
Right.
We live in a generation now, people are fed up from just being a materialistic customers. They want to contribute to the givings. So back to your questions. First, I will answer how do you do the balance, then I'll tell you how we make sure that Numuhub is a sustainable model. Back to the first question is, the balance is always giving. When you do the products, or when you create the products, or you create the business model, you make sure that giving is an enabler factor on it, and something that will foster it. And all this depends on the business model. For example, so many people who start giving initiatives now, they just fed up after 2 months.
Right.
Why? Because they see it as a burden. Like, they take so much of their time. It's not sustainable. There is no revenue growth in it, and usually it is just a cost center. It is not sustainable.
There's no profit center.
There is no profit centers, and when I say there is no profit centers, the whole business model has to be well balanced. You have stakeholders, customers would like to be conscious of their customers. You have shareholders, they would like to be motivated with their profits. You have employees, they would definitely like to work in purpose-driven companies. I've seen so many people now, very smart, and they work in the top tier companies, but they're really fed up. They really want to leave their companies because they feel like they're not contributing enough. And they are really fed up of just doing the same jobs every single day, and there is no impact, and they just really, they see no value of the job they do, even though they get a very high paycheck at the end of the month. Right. But there's still that missing gap.
The purpose.
Exactly. Thank you so much for that. And it's all about the purpose. And when we started Numuhub as well, our slogan is travel with a purpose. And that was the first day slogan, is a travel with a purpose. Now, how did we create that sustainable model? Is we have created a social enterprise, and this is the most part of it. It got to be profitable. It got to be motivating to the shareholders. It got to be motivating to the customers. It got to be motivating to the employees. It got to be motivating to the communities we travel to. It got to be motivating to our supply chain players, which everyone is locally made, and everyone is really happy. So it's not easy to bring such a model, but once you bring it, you bring every single parameters all together, and this is where you make sure that you actually hit it right.
I love that.
Yeah.
Going back to how some founders give up in the first couple of months.
Yeah.
What struggles have you faced when starting up Numu? If you can give us some examples of the things that you've had to endure?
Yeah, so obviously in every journey, when you start, it's always going to be difficult. Difficult because you have, first of all, lack of knowledge, lack of expertise, lack of know-how, and you're not sure how you really manage things, and as a result, your decision-making skills becomes poor, or you make decisions that is not really the right decisions. And at the end of the day, it's all about how you decide. You have all your data, you have all your know-how, but when you make a wrong decision, this is where you screw up.
Right.
And so we made so many poor decisions before, whether it's for the employees, with accommodations, with hiccups, with buses, with logistics, and you just learn slowly and slowly. But what we were lucky at is we already had that sustainable model where it's profitable, everyone is happy. It does not accept. Is not a donation-based model. It's purely a social enterprise model where it sustains itself. It does not depend on an external player to sponsor you. You are doing everything within yourself, and you are benefiting everyone across the entire. The stakeholders, and this is what we really.
Was there one particular mistake that you made that resonates with you till today? That you carry those learnings with you? One particular mistake that was above all else.
Very good question. Maybe just give me a bit of a pause. But
sure, take your time.
No, I'll answer it. So one of the particular mistakes that come in my head right now is obviously, especially in an industry like travel industry, planning is always a very big aspect of it. Planning and arrangement and doing everything beforehand, before the actual thing. For example, Misk here is 3 days, but I'm sure the planning of that took very, very long time.
Absolutely.
And this is something that we did not really know on our first trip. So in our first trip, we have people coming with us, and we had a lot of very last-minute hiccups. I remember that I already arranged for a bus to take us and be with us for a 2-month period. The first day, the bus, all of a sudden, I'm calling him, he escaped. And I have customers actually waiting for me there. And I'm in Zanzibar, in an island that first time I'm actually in, and I'm operating the trip.
So you hadn't visited it before?
I had visited, but it's still, I'm not familiar with the place. And if you know about Africa, for example, or Zanzibar, it's still not as developed as our regions. So arranging every single thing is very difficult. I don't speak the language, I don't know what to do. Customers are waiting here, and there is no bus, and in a situation that the guy just let on. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing a guy on the street. I speak to him. I was like, please, just get me any bus and whatever commission you will do that, I'm ready to pay you. And all of a sudden, he called his friends, and friends called, and then there's a bus came in, and then he left, and then I made the deal, and then something happened. But yeah, all these very, very last minute hiccups, it will come with a new startup journey. And your agility and your resilience is what matters here, and how you really become, your problem-solving skills has to be very quick. You have to come up with solutions at spot. And this is what differentiates, successful, I would say, founders or successful companies from the ones that failing off. So my advice, and again in this podcast, is really be patient, be resilient, and make sure that whatever hiccups, you break the problems down into very simple problems. You have a complex
executable tasks.
Exactly, and that's what really matters. And that is not an easy skill, by the way. People say it, people talk about it, but this is a very, very tough skill that very few people actually master it.
Right.
Having a problem and breaking that into different, as you said, solvable tasks or executable tasks, and implementing that. This is really a key of, I would say, not even leaderships or big leaders, top tier leaders. And that's what I would say. One of the main things that came in my head, and a mistake I would say, is really just not being fully prepared.
Right.
And and
so if I can go back to something you said in the beginning, and you said it in passing. You said you finished your dissertation.
Yeah.
And you left and you went on this long journey.
Yeah.
Your dissertation in what? What were you doing?
Fantastic. So I did a degree in chemical engineering. I did a bachelor's and master's in chemical engineering, and in a typical kind of path of, I would say, so many people or motivated people maybe in the youth that oil and gas is the right industries. They start with engineering, is the highest pay, and everyone is excited and is very competitive. Let's go into it. We get into it and we find out, oh wow, like what am I doing?
What am I doing with my life? I'm on rigs. They're asking me chemicals, mixing mud
exactly. Yeah. So once the moment I finished that, I was like, and I already had a contract with a company that already sponsored me. So they sponsored my education to go back and work for the oil and gas company.
Okay.
And
I'm assuming this was Aramco.
No, it was a company called Shell.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, I had to kind of delay my entrance and working to go for this travel, and to convince them it was a headache. It was because you already signed the contract, you have to work for them immediately, and at the same time you want to do something different. You're still young, you still have full of energy, and you know that this energy will not exist with you 10 years down the line.
Didn't you feel like it was a risky move at that point to leave everything that you've been? So you finished your education, you finished your bachelor's, you went on to do your master's.
Yeah.
So you've been on this path, you have these passions, but at the same time you kind of, and I think most of our viewers are going through the pressures of having to build themselves and build their lives and build their careers. So what, at that point of time, were those fears that you were quieting down to make a decision?
Fantastic. Really good question as well. Mashallah, your questions today is on spot. So I would really give, first of all, before answering, I would just give a quick message, is really people have to manage the risk. Especially in our youth now, so many people are excited, are passionate to do this, but sometimes they put themselves in something that's too much of a risk, and they didn't realize, and then they end up screwing up. And I've seen this so much at the moment. People talk, okay, let's do it, and they get emotional with it without really understanding the risk. And accordingly, they cannot hedge the risk. They cannot minimize the risk. So, and the importance here is how to find the balanced line, how to make sure that you have the risk, but make sure that risk is managed. And this is a fundamental of anything, and it's fundamental of any investment, and it's fundamental of your self decisions as well.
Your personal, your personal investment in yourself.
Exactly, yeah. So I had the risk, and I had the management of the risk, and I'll tell you what's the risk and what's the risk management.
Please.
Yeah, the risk was, I might actually lose the job, and I being jobless and I'm just a fresh grad, obviously with an empty pocket. By being a fresh grad, you don't expect to have so much. So that was the risk. You're not going to find another job. And I want to travel as well. Like traveling for 6 months is not it doesn't take 1 riyal or 2 riyals. It's an expensive thing, and it's a 6 months period. So I remember in my last year I had an apartment. And for a period of time, I was in a city called Manchester in the United Kingdom. And at that time, I remember that I need to get some cash beyond my monthly allowance. So what I did, I had a lot of friends, but I talked to my friends, like, please, can you just give me your couch for like 6 months, and I will put my flat in Airbnb. And this is what I actually did. I actually slept at my friend's flat. You
couch surfed.
I couch surfed while at the same time generating revenue for my own flat. And just to fund my travel package, literally my travel trips. So
your sustainability model was kick-started then with that couch surfing model that you did, right?
I would say so actually. And one of the things maybe I used to love riding bikes. So I used to just buy bikes and sell bikes at university.
Are you serious?
Yeah, there is a bit of a commission. So I collected a really good amount. I remember it was around I would say around $8K to $10K, and this is what I came back with it. And then I put a plan for 6 months. I made sure that every day I will not spend more than $20. $10 goes to the hostel, because obviously I'll be living in hostels.
Yes.
$10 goes to food. If I went extra with the one dinner, I will have one of the lunches as a bread and butter. And I lived that kind of lifestyle. I was satisfied. I managed to go all the tourisms, and really that was the kick-off start in my kind of brain. And I would say that the best investment I've made. Even though, back to the question of the risk and this, I have the investment, I have the risk managed as well. And even my employer, I was very nice with them. Like, they actually were so angry, they tried to like come with, but I was like, okay, not being furious, or like, some youth now are excited, like they go and cut the
burn
ties.
bridges.
Yeah, do not burn the bridges. You never know. Just keep try
respect
as much.
is primary, I think.
Correct. And keep everyone happy. Like, you'll not, there is no way to cut bridges. I'm sure there's always a way.
You can do what you want to do.
Correct.
In either way,
that
you decide to execute it.
Absolutely, yeah.
With honor and respect, or by cutting ties and bridges and
absolutely.
That's powerful. Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I want to end with a story, if you'd indulge me. 6 months of travel.
Yeah.
What was the highlight? The one story that was beyond anything else you've experienced?
Okay. There is a very interesting story that's very close to my heart. It's a story that actually shaped my mindset, I would say. And it has built a lot of, I would say, accumulative, but when that story actually made me reflect in a very, very deep manner. And this is where I realized this travel was the best investment I've ever made in my life. And this is really a message to all the listeners of the podcast. Is why I was during my travel, I decided to go to the volunteering, and I do a bit of purpose-driven experiences. So I was actually volunteering, teaching in an underprivileged school in Kenya. This school was located in, I would say, in a very tough slums area, and it's actually considered one of the most dangerous slums area in Africa. Wow. And I did not know that at the beginning.
Wow. I'm glad you're here.
Oh yeah. And at that time, I was trying to teach, and during them too, I was teaching for a month, and I was just teaching basic maths and English, and we're teaching kids between 6 to 10 years old, and they will always have lunch in school. Right, and every single day the lunch is the same, which is beans and plain rice. Every single day, beans and plain rice, and I've done that for a month.
Yeah.
Anyways, I did not complain, but when I went there, I was like, I asked one of the kids, and I asked him a question from my old mindset, which is the mindset that I actually had before, and it's actually a silly question if you think about it. I asked him, like, do we get served chicken? I asked this kid. And this, because I eat with them, like as teachers, we don't have any food, and we eat with all kids. Right. He told me I have only tasted chicken once in my life, and it was so tasty. And at that moment, I was like, wow, this guy is actually could not afford chicken. He's 10 years old, lived for 10 years, and maybe he tasted chicken once in his life. And that thing like really shocked me. I was like, wow, the amount of things we really take for granted is crazy. We take for granted so many things that we're fortunate for in our environments in the GCC here. Alhamdulillah, we're really blessed with so many blessings, and yet you see so many people complain about silly things, while all these complaints are actually dreams for so many people across the other world. These complaints or this hardship that you think you're going through a hardship, this hardship is a dream for someone else in a different world.
Right.
And what we have is a very, very low percentage of the entire population across the world. So many people don't even have, I would say, 95% of the whole world, they don't have the same privilege that we have in our environments. And really that little things that made me take for granted. And you start appreciating the little things, you start being conscious of your time, you start being conscious of your spending habits, you start being conscious of your way of dealing with others, and you start really being strong with any challenge that comes to you. Like, what is it? Like, whatever the problem is, how big is that problem? Like, these problems are really dreams for so many people across in the world.
And I assume it builds empathy within you as well, and the ability to actually connect with people on a human level. Because if you put yourself in that 10-year-old's shoes who's tasted chicken once in his life, how can you not relate when it's something that you do on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that empathy is self-growth. Yani, that empathy should not be viewed as you only giving. No. That empathy, it is what's gonna make you grow in the future. That empathy is for you rather than for the others, and this is how you establish it.
It drives the way that you operate, manifest, and show up in the world.
Absolutely, exactly. Well said, yeah, absolutely.
That's incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for those words of wisdom.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thanks a lot for your time.
And I hope you enjoy the rest of your stay.
Thanks so much. Thank you
so
for
much.
hosting us. Thank you.
Thank you.